Hello and welcome. My name is Whitney and I'm an anesthesia intern documenting my journey as I go through my first year of residency. In today's video, I wanted to do something a little bit different than what I've done in my previous videos. In my other videos, I usually talk about, whatever block I'm on at that time. So it's very focused on what rotation I'm on and what I have going on during that specific period of time. But I thought it would be helpful to actually do a video that's a little bit more general and looking at what else is going on during intern year. I used to think that residency was more like a job where, like you go to work, you do your thing, you come home and you relax. But I'm finding out that that's not actually true, and there are other things that you have to do. So I just wanted to give an example of what that actually looks like and what we have going on during our intern year. I will just say that this is going to be very program specific. So, this is just what my program looks like. Wherever you go, it'll look a little bit different in terms of like the other activities you have to do outside of your clinical learning. But I'm hoping that by sharing what my program looks like, you kind of get an idea of what might be out there. You might hear things that you're really excited to hear about, and that might be something you want to look into when you're doing like your residency interviews and everything. And you might also hear things that you're not as interested in that are just as equally important in terms of learning if, like other residency programs have that. So I hope today's information is useful, and let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing I'll mention is that I am still studying. So the studying does not end with medical school, it continues on to your intern year. I'm currently studying for Step 3, which is a standardized national exam that you have to pass so that you can practice medicine. There are two other STEP exams, and both of those were taken in medical school. Like I needed to have those to like graduate and apply for a license and everything. But now I'm going to be taking Step 3, which is the final STEP exam. There will still be other exams that I need to take, but in terms of like the STEP kind of beginning board exams, I guess you can think of in a way, I'm on the final one, which is really exciting. In terms of how my program is doing this, so I just have to take this during my first year. So during my transitional year, I have to have passed that exam. And I thought that's how it was for most programs, but I'm coming to find out that it might be a little bit more program specific. So by that, I'm saying that not everyone has to take that exam during their first year. So the reason I know this is because with the internal medicine program that's at the same hospital that I'm at, they actually have to take the exam by the end of their second year. So they have the first 2 years to do it. So I think that's one important thing to know. I was under the impression that everyone had to do it in their first year, but apparently that's not true. So I think that is something that is program specific and might be worth looking into. A couple other things with what my program is doing that might be helpful to know that can be offered at different residency programs is they actually provided a learning service for us. So for me specifically, since I'm studying for Step 3, they provided a UWorld subscription. And in terms of studying for these exams, it really is like practice questions that I feel like are really helpful for me. And UWorld is a question bank. So it was actually really helpful. They gave us like a 6-month subscription for it, and that actually saved a lot of money. So I am very happy for that. In terms of actually paying for the exam, I had to pay for the initial, like registration and everything for that. So that money came out of like my pocket for now. But as long as I pass the exam, they will reimburse that. I'm not too sure if that's how it works everywhere, but that's how it is at our program. So as long as I pass the exam the first time, they will essentially be paying for it, which is very helpful because it was not cheap. It was, I think, $925. So yeah, that's a pretty big chunk of money, and that gives me more motivation to pass it because I don't want to pay for that again. The next thing I'll talk about is research. So again, that's something else that does not end in medical school. I actually think it is a requirement of all residency programs that they need to have their residents do some kind of research. At least that's what I've heard. I haven't honestly looked into it much, but I assume that's kind of the case just because research is pretty important. And yeah, I don't know. It's just we don't really have like at our program we don't have like a specific type of research project that needs to be done. We just need to do something, which is nice. I will say with our program, it is pretty formal, not in the sense that like it's on a timeline that needs to be followed strictly, but there is a process that they're having us go through to educate us about like research. So to do this, we don't have like monthly check-ins to see like where we're at with our program, but we have monthly lectures about it to talk about like research and like what kind of resources do we have at the hospital to actually do the research, which is really nice. I will say that research isn't always necessarily like my favorite thing. I like the idea of research in terms of like learning new things and trying new things out and trying to find connections of things. Like I think that's really interesting, but I find that the day-to-day work of research can be kind of hard. So I'm really happy with the program that's here and how they're going about it because they are having us do a project, and I feel like there is actually really good like resources and support to go along with it, to where I feel pretty good about having a research project or like having to do one. I'm still kind of early in the year, so I haven't exactly pinned down like what research project I'm going to be doing, but I know I have to do it, so I will be thinking about that. I'll probably think about it a lot more after I take step 3, honestly. That's it's consuming a lot of my thought process right now, I guess I could say. So in addition to research, there is actually formal education time as well. So we call it like didactics or like academic half days is what we'll call it here. As a transitional year intern, we aren't necessarily tied to like a specific specialty, but the way it works for us is instead of having like dedicated transitional year intern lectures, we just tag along with whatever rotation we're on to their lectures. So, like internal medicine is the one I've seen the most, and with those, I just go to like the internal medicine lectures. Just to give you an example of what it can look like, there are a couple of different lecture types or like days, I guess you could say. One of them is that they do have an academic half day on Tuesdays. So during the afternoon, they'll have like protected time from like clinic responsibilities, and they'll just get to like learn. And you usually talk about like pretty broad topics, at least in the beginning of the year. We are like hyponatremia and like how to read an EKG, which is like really helpful to review. And we just have like a series of lectures for a couple of hours on Tuesday afternoons. And then the rest of the week, usually it's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday where there's like a noon lecture. And for those, most of the other residents, so not just interns, will go to those, except on Friday. It's like a very specific intern learning kind of series. So, yeah, those are like the two types of like academic time that we have. And I think it's helpful to know what kind of academic time you'll have in residency. I don't think it's necessarily going to like make or break how much you like a program, or maybe it will. I don't know. Everyone's different. But I think it is helpful to know going in just so you kind of have like a sense of like how much time is dedicated to formal learning and like actually protected from clinic responsibilities. I think that could be important to some people. So just something to keep in mind. And then the last thing I'll mention is that there are still leadership opportunities that us interns can take. And so, just as an example, for my transitional year intern cohort, we have 2 class representatives and 2 wellness reps. And these were positions that were available for everyone. And people just like kind of put in their bid, and then we would like vote on who we wanted. And we decided like who our representatives and wellness reps would be. I will say it doesn't feel quite as robust as it did for me in medical school. I feel like there was like a ton of opportunities for leadership there, just between like actual like student body government and then other like clubs and everything. I felt like there was a ton of opportunity for leaderships positions, and I don't quite feel that way now in residency. That could be just because we have a smaller program and being a transitional year, we're like only here for a year and then we're moving on to our next thing. So maybe it's just like a coincidence that happened. Um, but it is still available, even though it's not quite the same level as it was in medical school. All right. Well, that's really all that I have to say in terms of the other things that go on during intern year. I will say with a caveat that I'm still at the beginning of the year and I'm sure I'll pick up along things along the way as I like go through the year. But yeah, just to summarize, outside of our clinic responsibilities, I'm still studying for, like standardized exams, still doing research projects, still doing formal academic times. And I didn't mention this before, but with that, like you also have we'll say opportunities, not requirements, to give presentations. So you are assigned like having to do presentations throughout the year as well. So you are working on that too. And then, yeah, finally, there are leadership opportunities for people. And Honestly, I knew about like the academic time, but all the other things I was kind of surprised by. I guess I knew about step 3 and having to keep studying during residency, but I didn't realize like how intense I felt like I actually had to study, and that's what I'm doing right now. So, it's very exciting. All right, well, that is all that I have for you. Thank you so much for coming along, and I hope to see you in my other videos. Take care.